Hey guys, in this video, I'm going to be reviewing the Microtech Standard Issue. So the Microtech Standard Issue, or MSI for short, was one of my most anticipated knives from SHOT Show earlier this year. This, as well as a manual version of the Microtech Stitch, were the two new knives Microtech debuted at SHOT Show, and what's really exciting is that this is a manual knife that utilizes Microtech's own version of the crossbar lock. Their version of the crossbar lock is called the RAM-LOK, and I gotta say, the mechanism is really great. I was really excited to finally acquire one of these from Microtech's site. They had multiple drops, but I wasn't able to get any, but they had one drop where they released basically every single color and variant in both the MSI and the manual stitch, so I was able to grab one for retail, and I was really excited. Before we dive deeper into the MSI, let's do a quick size comparison up against some of my favorite EDC knives. Here it is up against the Benchmade Bugout and Benchmade Mini Bugout. As you can see, the MSI is definitely on the bigger side of things in terms of EDC knife size. Here it is up against the Spyderco Para 3. Here it is up against the Civivi Elementum. Here it is up against the ProTech Malibu. And lastly, here it is up against the large Chris Reeve Sebenza 31. As I said earlier, it's definitely on the larger side of EDC knives. It's a lot bigger than pretty much every knife on the table right now, except for the large Chris Reeve Sebenza, and even then, it's still slightly bigger than the Sebenza. It's definitely a bigger knife. The MSI is also a relatively thick knife, given the fact that it's a new, strong RAM-LOK, and then the blade is also pretty thick, and it's on par with the large Sebenza's blade. And next, let's measure the MSI up against a ruler. In terms of sharpened blade length, it comes in around 3.5 inches, and then in terms of overall length, it comes in around 9 inches. As I said, it's definitely a bigger knife in terms of EDC knives. And lastly, let's weigh it on top of a scale. The MSI comes in at about 5.1 ounces, and that's equivalent to 144 grams. Some things to note about the MSI is that it retails for $250, which I think is awesome. It's an American-made knife for Microtech with a brand new crossbar lock mechanism, and only retailing for $250 is a steal price in my opinion. I think that is very competitively priced with the other made in the USA crossbar lock knives, and I think that is a great price for the knife. And my MSI that I have right here is the tan G10 version. Right now, in terms of variants for the MSI, there are 3 different colored G10s you can get it in. There's black G10, tan, as well as an olive green G10, and the blades are all in this sheep's foot blade, and you could either get them in a plain edge or a partial serrated edge. Back at SHOT Show, Microtech said that the MSI will be also available in carbon fiber as well as plastic composite handles, which I think is really cool. And what's also cool about the MSI is that it utilizes Torx screws rather than Microtech's proprietary triangle screws, which means that it's a lot easier to maintain and customize your knife. And what I'm really hoping is that maybe brands like Flytanium will make aftermarket scales for the MSI like they do the Benchmade Bugout and other knives. Now let's dive deeper into the knife. Let's start off with the blade. As I said, it is in this kind of modified sheep's foot blade shape, and it utilizes M390 MK steel. Regular M390 is made by Bowler, and it is a premium stainless steel that excels in edge retention and corrosion resistance, and it has moderate toughness. But M390 MK is supposed to be Microtech's exclusive version of M390. According to Microtech, M390 MK is supposed to have even better edge retention and corrosion resistance, as well as better polishing. It's pretty interesting because M390 MK would basically be M390 on steroids, which is a good thing. And now let's dive deeper into the RAM-LOK mechanism. The RAM-LOK is Microtech's version of the crossbar lock, and it is very similar to the access lock on the Benchmade Anthem. Standard crossbar locks, like on the Benchmade Bugout, utilize dual Omega springs and the blade runs on washers, but with the Benchmade Anthem, the blade runs on ball bearings, and and as you can see, instead of dual omega springs, it utilizes a spine-mounted coil spring, which is a big upgrade over the dual omega springs. I have never had any of my Benchmade knives or other crossbar lock knives omega springs break on me, but that is one of the fail points of the crossbar lock, and that is the omega springs unfortunately breaking. Thankfully, most knives with crossbar locks usually have lifetime warranties, but it always sucks that that could be a fail point on the knife. But thankfully, with the spine-mounted coil spring, it's definitely an upgrade in terms of lock strength and is a lot less fragile than the dual omega springs. And thankfully, the Microtech RAM-LOK utilizes the same mechanism as the Anthem. It runs on bearings, and it has that spine-mounted coil spring for the lock spring. The action is excellent. I think it's really smooth. The RAM-LOK itself is actually the same X lock that's also utilized on the Microtech Glycon, which I think is really cool. And of course, it being a crossbar lock means that it is ambidextrous and can be activated on either side with either hand, which I think is awesome. And another reason why I love Axis and crossbar locks is that it's a finger-safe lock, which means that you don't have to put your fingers in the way of the blade when unlocking the blade to close it. You simply pull back on the lock and then swing it closed, and your fingers are never in the path of the blade. One small problem I had with my RAM-LOK on my MSI, this could be an isolated incident to my MSI in particular, but I found that it had a little lock stick when the blade was in the open position, and when I went to close the blade, the crossbar would be stuck to the front of the locking mechanism, and I need to have to really pull hard in order for it to close. Thankfully, after use, this problem has pretty much gone away, but that is something interesting to note because I have never had this problem on any of my Benchmade knives, nor have I had it on any of my other crossbar lock knives, and that was a little disappointing coming from a $250 knife from Microtech. As I said, it did go away with actual use, so maybe you just need to break the knife in and you won't have any lock stick. And of course, if the problem did persist, I could just add a little lube to the actual lock area, and that could probably smooth things out, but it is something to note. This knife is a completely ambidextrous knife. In addition to the cross lock, you have a thumb hole as well as a two-sided deep carry pocket clip. And this is a little nitpick, but I was a little disappointed that the screws weren't flush within the scales. I know it's not the biggest thing in the world, and it's definitely not a big problem or anything, but this is a Microtech knife, and it does retail for $250, and it's a little disappointing that they couldn't have flush-mounted screws, whereas this $60 Civivi Elementum does. You also have a lanyard hole in the back, and the handle shape is pretty great in my opinion. I think it has great ergonomics, and another thing that I love about the knife is that on the spine of the body of the knife as well as the spine of the blade, you do have jimping, which I love. I think it's a must for any knife. It's great for grip when you need to choke up with your thumb, and then you do have a small choil. I wouldn't really call this a full finger choil, but you can also choke up with your index finger to get more precise control with the blade. As I said at the beginning of the video, the MSI is definitely on the bigger side in terms of EDC knives, and I definitely don't have the biggest hands in the world, so I can easily get a full 4-finger grip, and those of you who have a lot bigger hands shouldn't have a problem with the grip and should have a comfortable 4-finger grip as well. Besides the small lock stick problem right out of the box, I'm pretty satisfied with my pickup of the Microtech MSI. I'm pretty satisfied with my pickup of the MSI. I think it is a very quality knife, and I think it's solidly built, and I love the mechanism, and I'm really excited to see Microtech dive deeper with this mechanism in other manual folding knives. So what do you guys think of the MSI and Microtech's RAM-LOK? I'd definitely like to know down in the comments. So that's gonna do it for this video. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed, follow me on my socials, and thanks for watching.